All right, so interest rates down yesterday. People are celebrating, but today we're going to talk about the actual reality over the decades, why this has happened, and should we be celebrating? So stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
Josh Rapshot,
Mark Novak, good morning.
how are ya?
Yeah, good. A little bit better now. We're about to unpack it after yesterday.
Interest rates. And just so you know, guys, we're talking off air. Like the automatic reaction for people is like cheering, like, oh, great, I'm saving money in my back pocket. But the conversation we've been having and the observation we've had over the last 30 years, 3 decades of when this has happened, is generally when the market's been animal, everyone's made a lot of money, then the government's tried to slow the property market down, put the interest rates up. When the economy's been shit, the country's in a little bit of trouble and they're trying to stimulate, they bring the rates down. So as a consumer, you're excited when rates are going down, but as a country, you're not. And the economy you're living in is not celebrating. What are your thoughts, Mr. Wapshop?
Yeah, it really is a bit of a double-edged blade. On the one hand, obviously, your traditional interest rate cuts tends to end in higher property prices, but then there's the other side to it with higher debt in the economy. Generally, your affordability goes down because with rising property prices, you've got rising rents, that sort of a thing. So there is a double-edged sword, and it's very true that generally interest rates are brought in to spur a stalling economy. I think some really interesting data that I looked at, I think it was last week, was in regards to the employment rate. And what they've sort of said was that it's essentially over the last 12 months been propped up. And that's been propped up by employment from government agencies as opposed to the private sector. The private sector being, your entrepreneur, your business around the corner. It's at astronomically low rates that, or higher rates, I should say, that employment rate from the private sector. So I think that's really been a big pusher in terms of this interest rate cut, obviously spurring consumer confidence and some spending, but there it's used as a tool to sort of take the load off this private sector and help the employment there. So yeah, like you said, double-edged sword, good and the bad. Good, obviously, real estate, if you own property, prices generally do go up because your buyers have got more load, a bigger barrel or more to spend in terms of their capacity for mortgages. But on the other side, yeah, you've got an economy that's needing a little injection, which is scary to see, because where does it go?
Yeah, and I think we're firing into Christmas, believe it or not. So I believe it takes about 90 days for the full effect of an interest rate drop to come through the banks, through the consumers, through the economy. So we'll see the result of that. But if they want a happy Christmas at the RBA for consumers, they want to be injecting some rate reductions now. If it's going to be taking 60 to 90 days to come through, this is the time they're going to be doing it. And probably, I reckon, the month after and the month after, I wouldn't be surprised if we got a little bit more. Then they abstained. They waited over that sort of Chrissy period into February to when RBA meets again. So there's probably only a window now of 1 or 2 rate reductions for them to apply over the next couple of months. And I think, are they going to, do it just before Christmas over that period? I don't know. I think that they don't have optics over that period because I think it's December and January, the RBA is not meeting. So they probably want to be a settled environment and a settled economy and be watching the results of the July, August, September potential rate reductions and then ease into it. Do you reckon they've done a good job?
I mean, yeah, I think obviously it has done a good job because we've seen that that headline inflation come under target at 2.7%. So I mean, that's the whole idea of your interest rate cycles is to is to have an effect on inflation's people's spending. I mean, that's probably why they tend to not. I think it was last Christmas we were expecting a rate cut, but they didn't pull through. And that's generally because Christmas people are buying presents, there's activity, people are out in restaurants for Christmas lunch, or they're on holidays, people are spending money. So generally during that period they leave it to itself, because if you spur too much spending, well, that's going to bring up your inflation. And inflation is a hard puppy to tackle, purely because there's so many external influences. You know, you've got the global economy, and this is all really spurred from back still at COVID, where supply chains are playing catch up, and the consumers paying the difference there in all this extra costs. You know, even with what we're seeing in the Middle East, shipping lanes and that sort of thing. You know, increased insurances for ships after they're being attacked. All these things have a play on you know, your local economy, and those things are outside of your control. So yes, I think they've done a good job, and it's probably a good thing that they have been conservative in the way that they have begun to cut rates. We don't want to end up right back where we were, and we've seen over the last 2-3 years, it's been quite a journey bringing this inflation level back down to a target range. What are your thoughts?
Now, we're not economists and we're not trying to be, but we are real estate agents, and we are reporting what we do see that happens in the economy. I think the net effect is the thing that I like about these rates coming down is that actually, yes, it's a shit sign on the economy, because you want the economy to be strong, that property prices are strong, but there's more for everyone. But there is the nice thing about these rates coming down is it leaves more for the individual in their pocket to do what they see fit. So I feel as a property owner, I can't change what's happening in Australia and the economy and you know the broader stuff. But when I've got more in my pocket because my rates have come down, I've actually got a little bit more autonomy, a little bit control to change in my life what I can change. Whereas that's taken away when rates you know are high, because you're clipping more money across for interest rate repayments. So I think for people, it's going to be more control with their money. But I really do want to alert people that, you know, generally when the rates are on the rise, that's when they're trying to slow down the property market. That's when you've made a shit ton of money. So we're coming into when watch this. When the rates go back up, you would have made a fortune out of your property.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Right? So we are right at the other end of that cycle, maybe a little bit, maybe a few steps into it, where it's building. And what people should expect is out of their property with rate rises, rate deductions. What people should expect for good property is it doubling over a 10-year period. So if you look at our property market the last 50 or 100 or 150 years, 30 years, 20 years, generally that property market's doubled on average every 10 years, sometimes 5, sometimes 15. So where are we in that cycle? Well, the way to look at your suburb is you claw back and look at what the prices were 10 years ago, and then you have a look at what the median price is today. Now, if I give you a working example of a unit suburb in the Northern Beaches called DY, and there's 9,500 units in DY. If I grab the median from 10 years ago and I grab the median today, it's an 80% growth. Now, just if for people who aren't good with their maths, 100% growth means that market's doubled. 130% growth in that 10-year period means that market has stretched its legs probably too much, and you want to pull it back a little bit. So we are underperforming in our area. If I look at Mossman, if I look at Bondi, if I look at Manly, and I look at units, for example, that figure's fairly consistent. It hasn't doubled in 10 years. So the property prices are behind a little bit for units. Here's the scary bit. You ready, Mr. Wapshot?
Let's go.
If you look at houses in the suburbs I just mentioned, they've done about 120 to 130%. So as a matter of fact, some of the housing suburbs in Sydney in our area have actually overperformed, and most of the unit suburbs have underperformed. The other day we looked at Parramatta doing only not doing double, not doing 100%, not doing 80% like DY, but doing 11% over 10 years. Now, that's a different kettle of fish. That's supply and demand. But on average, that's what everyone should expect. I think unit prices are going to be on the charge and house prices are going to level off a little bit, and that's going to be the net from the interest rate reduction that we've had.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting end of the year. It looks as though this sort of stimulus will stick up for a 2-year period. From the stuff that I'm reading, I'm very interested in that economy side of things. So I think a real solid 5% next year and the year after is what we're looking at. And I think you're right in saying we're at the beginning of that phase of growth. And with the recent low stock on market, if you compare to this time last year, almost half the sort of level that's available. So kick in lower interest rates, seasonal, you're coming into spring, summer, you've got low stock. I think it's my prediction for the rest of the year is I think it's going to be definitely a little bit more exciting than the first half, and I think we're in for some good growth. What do you think, Mark?
Yep, I'm with that as well. So, guys, that's the rates. That's a report on the rate reduction, what we're seeing on the street with consumers, what we've seen on the street with real estate prices over the last 5, 10, 20 years as a result of these rates being reduced, or we've given you some examples of increased. But definitely keep an eye out if we're here for property and we're here for property prices and I guess real estate economics. And what we've actually seen is houses overperforming and units underperforming. So again, I'll say it in summary before we go, I reckon units are on the rise. Houses are leveling out.
Oh, there you go. Heard it here first. Playing a bit of catch up on that 10-year metric, but I think we've played with that with a few suburbs, and it works. So especially in your tightly held areas that have a high demand, such as the Northern Beaches. So yeah, great chat this morning, Mark.
Boom, boom. Have a great day.
You too. See you guys.
See you, everyone. Bye-bye.